And I'm grateful to be here with you all in Oakland. Oakland always shows love. The Bay Area always shows love. I get lots of work out here for everything I do, from everything you said, music, science, mushrooms, philosophy. The Bay shows love. So I'm always grateful to be out here. And today I'm going to be talking about a topic that has been something that has been like applied in my journey for over 10 years. Just a little bit on my backstory. Um, I didn't finish it. I didn't go to any kind of schooling or anything for what I do. I dropped out of high school because it was interfering with my education. I started learning about things that I found valuable to the life that I wanted to live, which there really wasn't. There weren't too many mainstream avenues for me to learn the things that I thought was going to be valuable for the future that I wanted to live. A lot of the things that I thought were valuable were kind of fringe or just not really known about. So I went down a different trajectory. I grew up pretty straight edge, going to church, getting good grades, all this kind of stuff. And I started experimenting with plant medicine in my early teen years and started growing plant medicine and started doing deep meditations for hours and hours and listening to binaural beats and doing all kinds of things, which we're going to talk about. So I got into the work of the Academy for Future Science, which they had done some work with researchers at Stanford, I believe Russell Targ and a couple other scientists. I don't know their names, but if you look up CIA declassified remote viewing files, there's declassified files from the CIA on remote viewing done at Stanford Research Institute. The research was done at Stanford Research Institute on humans projecting their consciousness and non-localized consciousness. And so this is where I really kind of picked up on this idea. And then I furthered my research by studying Elizabeth Rauscher and John C. Lilly, which we're going to talk about all of these people. And then Reggie mentioned about MycoFest, my festival that I host in Pennsylvania. And my first festival that I ever hosted, it was originally called MycoSymbiotics Mushroom and Arts Festival. The first year, Baba Kalindi and Kai Wingo came out and gave a talk on psychedelics in a family setting. Rest in peace to both of them. They're incredible psychedelic leaders. And Kalindi, whenever he realized that I was the one that hosted the festival, I was so little. Like, I was really young. I couldn't even grow facial hair back then. He came up to me, he said, you did this festival? And I was like, yeah. He's like, you got all these people here? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, do you take psychedelics? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I've done, the mushrooms, I've done DMT, I've done this much LSD or whatever. And he's like, well, then he started asking me like how much I've done. And then he's like, you need to take 30 grams of psilocybin, dry. And I was like, what? Like, what, bro? Like I was showing him respect, you know what I mean? But like in my head, I'm just like 30 grams, like. I took like 70 fresh grams, somewhere around there, like, which is probably about like 8 dry grams or something like this. But yeah, I didn't take that whole 30. Like, that's waiting for me somewhere in my life, but not just yet. But I did go very deep with lysergic acid. But when he told me to take the psilocybin, he told me specifically, he was like, take 30 grams of psilocybin, you're going to come outside of your body, and then you can rewire your brain while you're outside of your body. Like, he's told me just straight up like that, like very like plain, ordinary conversation. So there was a couple different directions towards this whole line of thought, and I'm just going to dig into it. So what is the human biological computer? Again, this is terminology that was brought to me through the Academy for Future Science, the work of the Academy for Future Science. And this terminology was adopted around the advent of the computer. There were individuals that were studying psychology that started to realize that computer linguistics kind of matched neural linguistics. Like a computer is kind of like a neural network. I mean, it's really like an externalized brain. So, metaprogramming is the process of reprogramming the human brain to alter the perception, cognition, and behavior. So, I'm gonna talk about this through the lens of psychedelics since this is a psychedelic conference. But I've given this talk in places where psychedelics aren't legal, and there's other ways to approach this. Although my approach to metaprogramming was through psychedelics. So, keep it rocking. What are we calling the human biocomputer? I don't know how to make it go exact on here. So when I refer to the human biological computer, I'm referring to the human body. Like, in the reality I subscribe to, we have many bodies. Emotional body, mental body, Eka body, Zohar body, many different types of bodies. And they're operating on different levels of reality, different spectrums of reality, different scales of reality, however you want to phrase it. But I recognize the human biological computer as a transducer of consciousness, as a receiver of consciousness, and this starts to push into the non-localized consciousness theory that I mentioned. I don't think it's so much theory. I think there's a lot of quantum physicists that recognize consciousness as non-localized. I do believe that there's a lot of modern professionals that still are pushing this idea that consciousness is a phenomenon that occurs in the brain and is an individualized experience. But for today's talk, I subscribe to the belief that the body is a transducer of consciousness, and consciousness is a pervasive field that is omnipresent throughout the house of many mansions. I wouldn't even say universe, because that's just limiting to our sector of space and time. Because I believe that this universe is just one house of many mansions, of many potential realities that consciousness exists throughout all of. So John C. Lilly. John C. Lilly is actually, his work is becoming more relevant in today's time, especially with this AI technology that's allowing people to communicate with animals. So John C. Lilly has anybody ever seen a movie called Secret of Nim? Word. I think it was already out when I was born. I was born in '94. But I remember watching it when I was little and seeing these like mice in the lab, and they start talking and stuff, right? Does anybody know what NIM stands for? Yep, National Institute for Mental Health. That's where John C. Lilly studied animal brains, like rat brains, monkey brains, opened them up, figured out all of the literature that we know, all of the jargon that we know about modern neurophysiology. A lot of this came from the National Institute of Mental Health in the 50s and the 60s, and John C. Lilly did a lot of this work. So he was a pioneering neuroscientist and psychonaut, and he's the inventor of the sensory deprivation tank, the float tanks. He created these tanks so that he could trip acid in them and lose sensation of his body and metaprogram the human biological computer, which he actually coined some of these terms. He coined the concept programming and metaprogramming the human biological computer in this book that was released in 1967. So I mentioned also about like talking to animals. You can see there that he's like talking to this dolphin, or like looks like he's talking to this dolphin in this tank. There's research you could see, and like people call me out on all sorts of things that I mention when I'm trying to get my points across. But they flooded out an island in the Caribbean somewhere. They flooded out a house in the Caribbean somewhere, and he hired this woman that lived with this dolphin for I think a couple years and worked on teaching the dolphin how to speak English or like communicate through English. And they developed a lot of communication and were able to, they were able to communicate with the dolphins. yeah, I mean, he was taking acid. Some of the dolphins were on acid, but yeah, pretty crazy experience. But a lot of the information comes from here. So take everything with a grain of salt and utilize information as you will. But this is where a lot of the source of this information comes through. I'm operating on 3 hours of sleep if I'm moving a little slow. Usually I talk faster. So yeah, I mentioned the Academy for Future Science a couple times. So I was like, this is before my son was born. I was like 18 or 19 years old, my first son. And I was taking a lot of acid. Like, I was taking acid like every 2 weeks. I would take as much acid as I could handle. And then I wouldn't take it if I didn't understand what happened to me the last time. Like, if I had an experience that was too overwhelming, because I was like writing everything down, I was meditating a lot, I was like trying to integrate these experiences. And if I had an experience that was like so bizarre that by the next 2 weeks I wasn't like fully back into my life, then I just wouldn't do it again, and then I'll wait again. But I was like getting these crazy downloads, and then I would integrate it into my life and figure out how to do all these different things. Like, I legit dropped out of high school and like developed an ecological research laboratory. I get hired by Berkeley. I've taught at UNC. I taught at Penn State. I taught at Penn State 2 professors and graduate students about how I taught myself how to do molecular biology and DNA sequencing in my basement. You know what I'm saying? So like, it wasn't just like I was like tripping out and losing my mind. Like, I was tripping out and losing my mind in the best way possible, because the mind that I had developed in this human ideological reality was crap. So this is where I'm talking about for metaprogramming. So the Keys of Enoch, I'm just a kid, and like I walked into this metaphysical shop. I was going to this metaphysical shop a lot, and like just learning about crystals and buying incense and things like this there to like just develop more of my spiritual practice. And one day I walked in, and it looked like there was a light shining on this book, except there was no light shining on the book. And so I was just like, yo, what the hell? And I went over there, and like I like looked at it, and the first thing I opened up in one of the first pages, it says, this is an initiation into the Brotherhood of Light. And I was like, yo, this is a cult. And I was like, I put this book down, and I was like, yo, I want nothing to do with no cults. And the woman at the desk, she was like, why'd you pick up that book? And I was like, I don't know. It kind of like some reason I was interested in it. And she's like, if there's any reason you're interested in that book, I suggest that you read it. And it was like $50. I was like working, like serving tables. I didn't have no money. I was like, yo, $50, that's crazy. Like, serving tables in Pennsylvania is like $2.35 or something like that. Like, you have to work for tips. So like, I was like, yo, I can't afford a $50 book. But then I ended up buying it right then and there. And yeah, so this book is the Biocomputer Keys to Our Consciousness Time Zone, as delivered to J.J. Hertog via Master Messenger Ophanim Enoch in an experience that he had in 1974 or 5, where Ophanim Enoch and Metatron came to him and took him to a different reality. And it wasn't just like out of nowhere. This man was working for Walt Disney's brother at labs that they had. I can't remember what part of California, but they were hooking people up to EKGs and studying vibrational effects on their brain waves. They were figuring out which instruments and which vibrations and which tones triggered which sensations and things like this in humans, so that they could create the Disney incantations that had everybody losing their mind whenever we were little. So he was studying this, but he also was studying ecumenical religious studies. He was studying all world religions. So he started to incorporate world chants into the studies that he was picking up about studying vibrations and brainwaves. And I don't remember which way it was that he ended up understanding about LiDAR technologies, but he got hired by the last philanthropist that had permission before the Egyptian Hall of Antiquities prohibited people from going into the Great Pyramid, into certain chambers in the Great Pyramid, and to other sites around Giza. He got hired by this super rich guy when he was younger, and he went in there with his wife with LiDAR lasers, and he discovered new chambers, documented. J.J. Hertog discovered new chambers, and was one of the last people to discover new chambers in the Great Pyramid. And him and this other author wrote this book called Giza industrial complex where they proposed that the pyramids were hydrogen generators whenever water would flow through them, because they have chambers that has giant pillars that are different minerals that would have come from really far away. Would have cost a lot of energy, any kind of way to bring to that place. But if the room fills up with water, those pillars would create a chemical reaction. And he's like talks about all the air shafts being, where hydrogen would have moved and all this different kind of stuff. But this book really solidified a lot for me, because between this and between Elizabeth Rauscher's work, which is Mind Dynamics in Space and Time, was one of the pieces of literature she put out. But she was also out here in Berkeley. I forget what they called them. It was like a bunch of hippies. There's like a book or something in a documentary about like how hippies save science or how hippies save physics. And like there was this group of tripped out hippies that were like pretty much studying quantum physics like really, really early on and set the field for modern quantum physics. This is like figuring out like whenever I send my homies I was at the airport earlier today and I sent my friend a pin of where I was. This is like sending yourself a pin to your biocomputer of where your consciousness is in space and time. Like consciousness is a field that's pervasive throughout space and time. You can locate yourself in this matrix of things. So yeah, I took in a lot of their work really early on, and I went to go meet them. One of the big parts, whenever I was younger, I learned permaculture design, which is a whole systems design science that a lot of people believe is just about agriculture, but you can use it to design any kind of system, and it's all based on indigenous land techniques, which is based on millions of years of ecology, which is more resilient than a lot of human ideological systems that we rely on. So one of the things, my first permaculture design that I created was called non-traditional independent education systems, because I didn't go to college and I dropped out of high school, but I didn't want to stop learning. But the things that I wanted to learn, I wasn't available in a format. Like I couldn't go somewhere for somebody to just teach me all this stuff. I had to find different places where people were teaching a little bit of this stuff and then put it together, because I knew if I knew this and I knew this, that I could put those things together. So I would read all these people's books and watch all their videos online, so that when I spent the money to go meet them, because I didn't have money, when I went to go meet them, I didn't want to ask them something they already wrote in a book or they already told me in a video. So I would watch all their videos, read all their books, and then when I go meet them, I would meet them wherever they were at with their modern research, and I would ask them about the things that they were at. And they let me interview them when I was like that little. They let me have a private interview with them. I was literally like shaking. I had never been around like pure like people that was like in the most intention in their life. Like I'd never been around people that put that much like intention into their life. I was like shaking. I couldn't even keep my voice together. But yeah, J.J. Hertak really built a foundation for this information that was digestible for me. Like I was able to read that and understand it. I'm the grandson of an English professor, and he raised me a lot when I was younger. So the literacy in which the doctors Hertak write about this kind of spirituality was easy for my colonized brain to comprehend, because I got fully colonized and I had to like get back out of that some way. So this book came out in like 2012, I think, or 2011, and this one is like a more contemporary version of the Keys of Enoch. It's like this one is like how you start waking up your multiple bodies. Like all right, this is how you like kind of find yourself, and this is how you start waking up your body that's on this level and this level, this level. Like it's really like if you know about the chakra systems, I think we have like 7 main chakras, but then there's like a 13 chakra system once you open up your next bodies, and there's a higher system. It's like the same as like the Kabbalah, like the Sephira. I think I have some stuff about Kabbalah here, but the Kabbalah is like the Hebrew version of the chakra system, and it's like completely similar type system. So I started studying ecumenical religion when I was younger, because I started to realize it was like historical documentation of individuals that had mystical experiences throughout the world, and a lot of them correlate. Like there'll be like specific dates and times where like people in the Hebrew text had some crazy experience, and there's some crazy shit going on in India where some deity came out the sky and like all at the same time. Like so there's a lot of really interesting correlations if you actually open up your eyes to it. But that book's really good for contemporary. Like, young people could read The Over Self-Awakening and like start to understand consciousness and start to understand non-localized consciousness, because a lot of the meditations that it has you do, in each of the chapters, it has you do meditations and different practices to try and connect. It has you sing songs that different religious leaders and indigenous leaders around the world like taught them. These are the sacred names that we use to contact divine entities. Like, all these different kinds of things. They put together so much intention in it. Elizabeth Rauscher, I got to meet her before she passed away. She was a physicist and consciousness researcher who studied the interface between science and spirituality. I mentioned her before. If you look up how hippies save physics or how hippies save science, like, she was part of this crazy team of psychonauts out here in Berkeley that revolutionized modern quantum physics. Her contributions to the understanding of consciousness include research on the physics of consciousness and insight to the nature and reality of the mind. Like, this is like some of the research at Stanford Institute, they had students sitting in an all-white room wearing all white with a ping pong ball on a white table trying to get them to move the ping pong ball and shit. And some of them were able to do it. But like, the remote viewing stuff was way more successful. And now also there's declassified KGB, Soviet Union information. I just posted it on my Instagram the other day. Information on that they had on remote viewing as well. Everybody's trying to figure out how to do remote viewing, because as soon as the people in Stanford Research Institute figured out that they could see somebody in a different room, see inside a bank vault, and then they started finding downed military planes that they didn't know where they were. All right, so that's crazy, especially when you know that Russians are doing this shit during Cold War era. Like, come on now. So this is where you get the whole like lore of the what's that show with the where they go in the demon world, and there's the girl with the bloody nose that she does the psychic shit. Well, Stranger Things. Whenever in the Stranger Things show, they go and they have that place where they have all the kids that all have abilities and shit. That shit ain't no just stories. That's not just stories. That shit, there's gonna be a breaking point with everything that we're doing with these conferences and everything we're doing with ourselves. There's gonna be a breaking point whenever people start realizing the physics of consciousness and how we can, just how I can like move my arm like this. Once you recognize the physics of consciousness, I'm still trying to figure it out. You don't have to do as much things to get to instant manifestation. So Baba Kalindi. Kalindi was known for his work with high-dose psilocybin. This is the gentleman that told me to eat 30 grams of psilocybin. His teachings, he really went into the power of the high-dose psychedelics. He revolutionized black psychedelia. Like, they put on the conferences in Detroit. He had a bunch of young black folks taking massive amounts of psychedelics and like guiding them through, all right, now we're about to go into the microverse. Now we're gonna go into the macroverse. Or like, hey, do you see all these crazy ships in the sky that you weren't able to see before you took all the psychedelics? Like, that was there before you started tripping, but now you can see it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's all these different things he was just guiding people through. And he was also a master martial artist. Like, he would talk about like how when you would watch the movies and they would show like the monks that could like walk on blades of grass and like move in slow motion and shit like that. It's like, there were once humans that trained forever on the mountains, and even here in California, there's that place called Esalen, and it's the place for human potential. Like, there were humans that figured out this shit sitting in the mountains, on the top of mountains forever, not talking to anybody, figuring out how to do all sorts of incredible things with our bodies, and by the time that the cameras came, and by the time that people started documenting this and caring about documenting it after colonization, we still had individuals that could stop their hearts or change their body temperature and all this kind of stuff. Documented today on video, monks sitting out in the snow has a ring around them that's all melted, and they're not wearing clothes because they know how to control their body temperature. Or Yogananda, probably one of the single-handed disciples of yoga to the Western world, documented stopping his own heart and then making it start again. This level of control of the body. Like, people don't know, people are all addicted to wireless gambling machines. The technology that's in our phone was developed by the mafia in Las Vegas to figure out how to get people to give them their money without having to put a gun up to their head. Look it up yourself. Everybody's addicted to wireless slot machines and can't even control their own habits, let alone try and control their own body. This is what we're trying to get to. Vasamasulu Credo Mutwa was one of the last high shamans of the Zulu nation. If you can find any of his work, any of his recordings, listen to it, and listen to it with the most open mind that you can, because this man will straight talk about the aliens that he saw in the bush. Like with the bush people, he's like, oh yeah, these type of aliens. He goes into species. He'll be like, oh, these type come down here and this is what they do, and this type come over here and they want these things. This man was an incredible source of this information, an incredible source of recognizing the multidimensional consciousness, and a true disciple of a multidimensional spirituality, a multidimensional reality, an ecumenical reality, and honestly, the reality that I subscribe to, that we're part of an ongoing evolution that does not start nor end with Mother Earth, that this is just one period of this experience, that we are part of an evolution that goes on into the stars, and not with capitalism. It's already just what it is. Consciousness. Recognizing ourselves as consciousness energy bodies operating biological wetware. I made this picture when I was dummy young. I literally couldn't grow a mustache. I was trying to help people visualize what I'm trying to say. You know what I'm saying? I'm because I think a lot of people get wrapped up when they think about reincarnation and think that you're going to be the one that comes back again. I think that a lot of people get wrapped up with this image that we have right now. But it's just one of the many faces. My permaculture teacher really laid it out for me in one of the best ways. He said, we're learning about compost. He said, what happens whenever anything dies in a forest? And I was like, it gets broken down into soil. And he's like, well, if everything is as above, so below, what makes you think that your soul is any different than the physical? He's like, what makes you think that your soul doesn't just get broken up to many pieces and recombined in whatever form? You know what I'm saying? So that's just one way of viewing it. But I don't necessarily believe that what you may encounter with yourself in these other levels will be exactly the way that you see yourself now. But it's a great way to visualize it. But coming into this understanding that we are consciousness operating these energy bodies, it helps us to gain perspective around how we can metaprogram our physical wetware. Because that's what I'm actually talking about. What I'm talking about right now is you practice this, you go in and get some brain scans, you go in some other period of time after doing all this shit, you're gonna be a different person, physically a different person, wired differently. Like a child that spends every day waking up and sitting down and waking up and sitting down inside of a closed room versus a child that wakes up and goes and forages for their food and climbs up. You see these people, whenever people from the Western world go to the islands and they're like, oh, how did this man just shimmy up a fucking tree and grab these coconuts? I could never. You know what I'm saying? You go out dancing and you'll see some people, some people are moving their body all fluid, and it has nothing to do with race, and it has everything to do with how you spent your childhood. Because when we're young and we're going through neuroplasticity in the way that we move our body, my babies, they don't know babies when they're born, they can't articulate their fingers. They have to hash out the nerves to articulate their fingers. It starts with swinging the hands, starts to a little bit clamp their hands, and then little by little, my little girl, she's 3 years old, she just figured out how to put her thumb up. They have to figure out these connections. There's little things that if you didn't do it when you're younger, then you have a hard time trying to make your body do these things, curl your tongue, whatever it is. You have to develop those nervous system connections while you're young. I don't know if anybody's been tripping really hard and was able to sing different than they ever could sing, and they were able to move different than they ever could move, because you're in a neuroplastic state again, and you can actually create different nervous connections. So this is what we're talking about right now, because you can look in history, you can see humans scribbling on the wall like babies, to the point that we figured out how to write. You can look at us like we were babies until we grew up. And then at a certain point, humans realized that we could learn to learn, that we weren't just subject to learning from the environment, that we could learn to learn ourselves. That's metaprogramming. So progression from innate to learn to metaprogram routines. So like this is like being subject to reality. I mean, like when we're born, our parents are teaching us everything, our teachers are teaching us things. We have basic instinctual, nobody gotta tell the baby to suck on a titty. You know what I'm saying? The baby comes out, it's gonna suck while it's sleeping. You know what I'm saying? The baby, that's what they do. And like, so there's innate routines, there's things that's built into us, and then there's things that we learn from our family, experience-based, learn routines. So metaprogram routines comes in, and you could think about it as meta as you want to, or you could think about it like, one day, I wanna go do a jujitsu class. I wanna learn how to play chess. That's metaprogramming. You're just deciding that you're gonna put a different experience to yourself to change your programs. All right, so we can go into it a little bit more in depth, but innate, again, more biological, more instinctual. Learned, school, parents, family, culture, and then meta. Once you become, self-aware, once you decide, this is how I want to live my life, this is what I want to do with myself, and you can learn things in this 3 to 4 dimensional plane, or you can make good use of these psychedelics and come outside of your body and literally rewire your brain from a higher perspective. There was a lot of times when I was younger and I'd be taking lots of acid and I'd be like on the floor just fucking like rolling around and shit, and like it would just feel like so good. Like it would feel so really good. And like I would like be getting crazy visuals and I'd just be like lost in the sauce, right? It would be like orgasmic. And then like, but then if I applied my brain while my brain was on the acid, I was like, I felt like I was fucking Einstein. Like I could figure out anything, right? So I got to the point where I was like, you can let the drugs do you, or you could do the drugs. Like I could use this acid, or I could just like, and either way it's not bad. Like sometimes you just need to fucking feel good. And like sometimes, but like a lot of times when I was younger, I was like, yo, I don't got shit. I don't own anything. I have a baby. Yo, I gotta figure this shit out. Like I can turn on my brain like this. Well, this is why this shit's illegal. What the fuck? I can figure out how to do science and shit. Like this is crazy. Like, so routines, subroutines. So this is where we get to like talking like a computer, you know what I'm saying? Because really working with the computers has given us the linguistics to understand the brain in a different way. So, we have the main program, the function, routine, subroutine. So like for humans, it would be like your daily life. Your routine would be your morning routine. Your subroutine would be making coffee. Like you could take this to levels because like in permaculture, does anybody study permaculture? All right, so in permaculture design, we talk about zones. Like we design in zones. And for me, zone 0 is my brain. Zone 1 is my bedroom. Zone 2, that's my house. A lot of people will be like, all right, zone 0 is my house. Zone 1 is my garden. And I'm like, nah, I don't own shit. I don't own shit but my mind. When I first started doing this shit, I was like, yo, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. You know what I'm saying? Like, this was the first place that I had to occupy, because when I got there, Nike was in that bitch. Like, fucking different car companies was in that bitch. McDonald's was in there. One time I'm tripping on acid, I fell into this fucking red orb, and then this big-ass fucking yellow band goes across, big yellow arch comes out, ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I was like, yo, what the fuck? I was like, get the fuck out of my head. And I was like, yo, shit's in my head. This shit's crazy ingrained in my head. How many commercials I seen that this shit has its own region in my brain. Fuck out of here. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, I'll be puking that shit out. Fuck out of here. So, like, that type shit, like, you really gotta, like, if you're gonna go into it, you really gotta get prepared, because we got exposed hella. We got hella psyoped. There's gonna be all sorts of crazy shit in there that you gotta deal with. But, like, you gotta be prepared for it. And, like, I don't know, have somebody that loves you around. You know what I mean? Somebody that can fucking give you a cold towel when you start sweating really hard and shit like that, you know? But yeah, metaprogramming. The reason that I said, oh, my zone 0, all this type shit, is because, like, there's some people that take this to, like, okay, the subroutine is, like, literally grabbing the scoop of the spoon and putting the coffee grains into the, like, every little step of the way. And, like, honestly, this is how you program a child. Like children come out, they're raw, blank, like, have no code. Like, the fact that humans figured out how to talk to computers blows my fucking mind, right? Like, there's some nerds that was just like, if we put the right binary in, it will do word processing. It will make us edit photos. Like, there's somebody on the back end that literally had to make the machine figure out how to do all that shit. Like, when a baby comes out, they don't know how to do anything. Like, if you want to make your baby, if you need your baby to do whatever, your little kid to do whatever, you have to be like, all right, go open the door, and then go over to the left, if they even know what's left and right, and go to the bottom shelf and grab this. Like, you have to tell them every single step of the way. You can't just be like, go put your socks on. Like, you know what I mean? They don't know, where the fuck's my socks? Like, what socks? Like, you gotta get them, you gotta start them, you gotta go really all the subroutines. So that gives you like kind of a perception of it. Yeah, and then, metaprogramming, you got like consciousness practice like meditation, changes, and then changes in your thought, behavior, and in your patterns. A lot of my self-work I achieved through meditation, float tanks, and psychedelics. I consider cannabis to be one of the most potent psychedelics. People use it so much that they don't realize that they're always high and their regular perception of reality is just altered. Same like everybody's high on sugar and coffee. Motherfuckers don't know that they're high on sugar and coffee. That's just what baseline reality looks like, sugar coffee reality. Yo, imagine this thought experiment, right? Imagine if our native homeostasis molecule was psilocybin instead of serotonin. And then you took some serotonin and you were just like, yo, everything's like not wavy and extra colorful and everything's all straight. This is crazy. You probably gain all sorts of perception from the alternate reality that this is. This shit would probably look crazy as hell. Like if you were always on psilocybin like normal, you know what I'm saying? But like, the fact of reality is like, there's people that's on cannabis every day, on nicotine every day, on all these different substances every day. Somebody was asking me yesterday at this event, they were like, yo, if I take your mushroom tinctures, will I feel it? And I'm just like, yo, I don't know you and what you consume. Like, how much porn do you watch? How many cigarettes you smoke? How much coffee you drink? How much alcohol you drink? How much blunts you smoke? Like, can you feel anything? Like, what can you feel? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna keep it 100, I'm gonna keep it $1.50. I take huge dabs because I don't feel that shit when I smoke weed regular. Because I got 3 kids, yo, this shit's stressful. You gotta take the fucking fat dabs. It just gets bigger and bigger. I don't feel safer going to other substances, you know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna keep taking a bigger dab. You know what I mean? But like, fuck. But that's the reality of it. I mean, people have desensitized themselves so hard that to actually like feel something, I mean, like motherfuckers have to go take mushrooms to sit in the grass and enjoy a nice day. Like, why can't you just do that without mushrooms? Because you just blasted your mind with the craziest dopamine for like your whole childhood, just watching the craziest shows, watching the next craziest thing that makes you feel the craziest rush, going to do the next thing that makes you feel good all the time. Like, that shit, what are you gonna feel? Like, how are you gonna feel a little mushroom tincture? Come on now. So like, I'm also like kind of pushing this like resensitization, which is, again, take everything with a grain of salt. Being a sensitive person in this world is a fucking tough thing. It's a really, really hard thing. I don't even like to talk about it. That shit makes me fucking feel emotional. That shit's crazy. You gotta protect yourself, you know what I mean? So, but also it's a gift. Because there's been times where I stood in the forest and I can tell you what's going on the other mountain by the way that the wind's blowing through the trees. I can feel the trees in my bones with my feet touching the ground. Like there used to be humans that could tell you when it was gonna rain in weeks. There was people that could tell you where the animal herds were that weren't even here yet by just existing out in nature, because that's how sensitive that we were. But we brought ourselves down to nucleated, where we only care about ourselves, we only know about our families, all this type of shit. Like the actual human potential is beyond what people even want us to realize. Psychedelic-induced adult neurogenesis in metaprogramming. I've been really on this truffle kick because there's this research paper that came out a while ago. At this point, probably like 10 years ago. Melanistic truffles produce anandamide. I don't know what my time is. I'm sure somebody will kick me out when I need to get kicked out. But melanistic truffles produce anandamide. Anandamide is an endocannabinoid, and truffles don't have an endocannabinoid system to consume that compound. And for those of us that do know about truffles or don't know about truffles, truffles are underground mushrooms that need animals to eat them so they can release their spores into the environment through the animal's poop. So it's like obvious to me. I'm like, oh damn, they're getting these animals high. They're getting these little animals high as shit. And also, anandamide can induce adult neurogenesis in humans. Like, imagine what it does to a little squirrel, you know? So I have this whole theory, I call it the truffled vole theory, where I talk about how truffles may have been the predecessor to psilocybin in diversifying mammalian brain and nervous systems post-KPG extinction event. because all mammals were small while dinosaurs existed. After the dinosaurs went extinct, most of the mammals were small little mammals that ate stuff off the ground or underground. Truffles would have been there in abundance in a time, especially whenever all the trees are dead and everything like this. Those of us that know about mycorrhizal mushrooms, the years that the tree dies, a year or two after that, there's going to produce a huge amount of mushrooms. So this would have been very, very important, and truffles represent a huge part of the nourishment of a lot of very small mammals, placental and marsupial. So I think this goes in many different directions. Just to say, it doesn't have to be psychedelics. Truffles, lion's mane, Hericium genus. Lion's mane is Hericium erinaceus. There's Hericium coralloides, there's Hericium americanum, there's Hericium aviatus. Hericium coralloides has 3 novel compounds not found in lion's mane that are also neurologically active. These are all aromatic compounds. These are all spiritual compounds. Aromatic compounds are spiritual compounds. They levitate. They fly up to heaven. So these spiritual compounds generally are the most medicinal compounds. We know this with herbs. We know this with cannabis. Everybody's like, oh, the aroma is what modulates the experience. You know what I'm saying? So like the aromas in the truffles, the aromas in the lion's mane, the 13 novel compounds, the erinacines and hericinones, literally named after Hericium erinaceus, are aromatic compounds. If you want the benefits of lion's mane, you have to consume those. For the aroma, you have to get all of that aroma. That's what we're getting that benefit from. We're talking on a spiritual level. We're talking on an enlightened level, on a heightened level. Like we're working with the things in reality that literally float. Neurogenesis is the process in which the new neurons are formed in the brain. This generally decreases in adults. People say, oh, by the time you're this age, you're an adult, or blah, blah, blah. There was all this generalized bullshit when we were younger. There was food pyramids and all this shit. Everybody tells you that everybody's the same. There's a big fucking soup in America, and everybody's gonna be a big soup person or some shit. Like, fuck that. We're all different, and we need to recognize our differences. We need to value the fact that our grandparents probably would have killed each other, and that we are all sitting in the same room and can communicate with each other peacefully. We can learn things about each other that was never accessible. There's information that all of us are holding that wasn't accessible to all of us prior to this moment. So like, we really need to recognize that shit and share that shit. But again, the diversification of the nervous system typically ends sometime in the 20s for most people, but everybody's different. And then some of us are tripping our balls off and smoking weed in our late teenage years. We just keep that shit going. I want to be a kid forever. I want to be high. I want to fucking play games. You know what I'm saying? That's how I was. I was fucking running around in the woods. I said, fuck society. I'm going to get high. I'm going to run around in the woods. I'm still doing that shit. I don't want it to stop. I like this way of life. You know? I don't want to get old. You know what I mean? I feel like when you get old is when you stop doing neurogenesis. Psychedelics are very, very good at inducing neuroplasticity, neurogenesis. So, you know, this is why they're so potent. Why they're so potent in reality shifting. Psilocybin, LSD, ayahuasca. I'm a very big proponent of LSD. I think psilocybin is great. Everybody loves mushrooms. That works out very well. Cannabis does work. I do believe that people overuse cannabis and that it's not as effective as it can be. Like, I went to Guatemala for 10 days. I told them, like, yo, I'm not going to come teach in Guatemala if there's not good weed down here. They're like, yo, there's good weed down here. I get down there, there's a guy, he's like, yo, I got these scandalous Skittles. This shit's crazy. I'm just like, yo, I couldn't even get keef off that shit. I couldn't get any hash off of it. It wouldn't get me high at all. So I come back from Guatemala after 10 days. I took a dab and smoked one little bowl. I was fucking seeing angels coming out of waterfalls behind my eyelids and shit. It was so beautiful. And I was like, yo, give thanks. I was like crying and shit. I'm like, yo, this is crazy. I can't believe I get to see all this. I could write so many stories about everything I just saw behind my eyelids. I just told you like a little piece of it. It was fucking crazy envelopes with like things unfolding, beautiful things unfolding. And like, I'm just like, damn, I take dabs all day and I'll see that shit. It's because I didn't smoke for that long, but like, I'm just like, yo, most people that abuse cannabis don't realize how, you remember when you were younger, it wasn't just because you were a little kid that you were tripping off weed, it's because you've been smoking weed since you were a little kid. You know what I mean? That you're not tripping off weed no more. Psychedelic-induced adult neurogenesis and metaprogramming. It really puts us, has anybody, you don't have to raise your hand if you feel comfortable talking about your experiences, but has anybody had experience so intense that they came out of their body? Like, that they like feel like they weren't in their body anymore? Yeah. So like, on acid, on DMT, I've had experiences where I'm like tripping so hard, I came out of my physical body. There's been a couple times I looked at my physical body. One time, I thought my dog got high. I came out of my body on DMT, and I was blowing this DMT smoke out the window, and my dog was like licking at the smoke and shit. And so I thought he got high, and I shot out of my body. Like I heard the like fucking crazy ass ping, and it was like crazy tones. I saw like the little, like how you could see the individual LED pixels on the television. I saw like little fucking fractal pinwheels on every little place of light coming into my cones of my eyeballs and shit. And like, I've like stood up and like, I was above myself. It was like there was no roof on my house, and I was just like walking around like I was like a little character in a video game, and I was like looking at myself. I was like, yo, this shit is crazy. Like, I was like, yo, I gotta take a shower. Like, I like put my little character in the shower. I was like, all right, calm down, bro. Everything's gonna turn back to normal. You know, this is regular psychedelics. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it all stops eventually. Even if it's an eternity, it'll be done. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, so I've been out of body a couple times. And like, this, if you plan to do metaprogramming, this is really the state that you can access the most and do the most neurological programming. Am I coming close on my time? Yeah. Am I over time? All right, let me wrap up. Okay, so codes. There are certain codes that resonate with consciousness throughout space and time. Like a lot of different religious philosophers and things like this literally chanted in mountains until they figured out like different noises that made their brain do things. And we kind of talked about this at the beginning. So there's sound, there's visual, there's energetic. The human experience is more inclined to understand visual symbology over linguistic, created human ideological linguistics. We can understand, the scary things in nature, or the certain things smell good to us. It's like a symbolic linguistic code that's literally talking to your consciousness. I always used to think about, I'm like, yo, if monkeys ate mushrooms and they can learn about language, what the fuck, who's talking to the monkey? Something's talking to the monkey in a way the monkey understands what it's saying. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yo, that's just crazy. So, we're going to keep it rocking a little bit because I am over time. Binaural beats, chanting, sacred languages. There's a lot of documentation of the languages utilized in most recent history to communicate with divine intelligence. So we're talking about the most recent biblical history on any religious text. Where was the last time people were talking to angels? Where was the last time people were talking to aliens? What languages were they using? What prayers were they saying? What things were they doing? These kinds of codes, these sacred languages, there's a lot in Mandarin, Aramaic, Hebrew, Egyptian, Tibetan. There's a lot of codes in those languages that activate consciousness experiences. So the binaural beats, putting the binaural beats, the different beats into each of your ears and letting it sink in your hemisphere works very, very well. I did a lot of this work on metaprogramming myself while doing deep Merkaba meditations while listening to binaural beats and holding different mudras in my hands. Mudras are different ways of holding your hands that creates different circuitry within your neural network. So I would hold different mudras and I would chant in multiple different languages while listening to binaural beats while I was high as fuck on acid. And then that's how I started to like work through this kind of shit. So yeah, binaural beats, chanting the sacred languages. You might want to take a picture of this if you want, or just take a picture of that. This website is the only place I saw that has like some like documentation of the higher chakra system, like I was telling you. So like I said, we have the 7 chakras on our physical body, but then the mental body, the eka body, there's multiple bodies that are operating in different dimensions of reality. This is why the human experience, this is why planet Earth has been hijacked by all sorts of crazy entities, viral entities, because the human experience is capable of experiencing the multidimensional reality. Not everything in reality can experience all of reality. So I think that there's been all sorts of entities that have been studying us for a long fucking time, trying to figure out how the fuck we can do all this shit. But I think we need to study ourselves, motherfucker. We have the fucking codes right here. We're walking around in that shit. So yeah, these are different. I actually generated these with AI based off of Sephira. So the Sephira, these are the different circles in the Kabbalah. There's all sorts of crazy things going on in the world right now. I value all religions for, if you look at them as history, it's so much easier to understand these things. If you look at them, these people are having religious experiences doing this. This type of people are doing these different things. It becomes, a lot of this information becomes very, very valuable if we remove bias. It can maybe be helpful for us. And again, same thing in the chakra system. Same thing represented in the chakra system. From physical reality, non-locality, we have to have we have to understand all of the experiences of life to fully achieve a different scale of life. So many people are trying to shoot themselves into it with psychedelics and not do the work. Like trying to keep going with the psychedelics to think that was what's going to do it. You have to do the work. The goal is active neurogenesis, active self-programming. Cognitive agency is the goal. We want to maintain our consciousness so that we're less susceptible to all of these entities outside that are pouring more energy than we've ever seen into capturing our fucking attention. That's what this is all about. It's about maintaining cognitive agency. I appreciate you guys listening to me talk. You know what I mean? Come check me out at my booth.